Yo guys, we are live. Welcome everybody. Let's see if everything works.
When there were no stars in the sky that night.
Okay guys, in the background this track is playing and we're going to have to take a look at it today. I want to welcome you all to the live show. I really hope the stream will be available during the whole period instead of the last time when everything crashed. We fixed a lot of problems on that part, but you never know with Facebook, so stay tuned. First things first, we're going to take a look at the project that is playing in the background. I'm going to explain a couple of techniques at what I did there. I can't explain everything at the same time, so if you have any questions, just drop them below and maybe we can take a look at it next time, or maybe I can answer your questions during the show. So another thing that we're also going to do is have a little sneak peek at the new sound bank that is coming up in about a month. It's the world's first freestyle sound bank, so we're really excited to be presenting that. Michel Wieme programmed some really cool sounds for that. So we're going to have a short look at the MP3, the demo that he did for that. So that's coming up in about, I think, maybe 15 minutes or half an hour. So stay tuned for that. So first things first, let's have a look at the projects. So we're in Studio One right now, which is our main DAW. Really happy about it. And we'll just have a look around at how the project looks. So let's start on the top. Everything that you see is already arranged. I always start with a blank template, which I can show you right now, which looks like this, which always has some folder tracks in it, a couple of kick tracks, some drum tracks, which are all consistent of a couple of instruments, which most of the time is phalanx, is our drum, which we use as a drum sampler. So we have a couple of instances of phalanx, and then we get to a folder with leads, which there's nothing on there. It's just a blank MIDI track. But I can just take a synth and drop it on there, so it already has a name, so we don't have to be thinking about that. Then there's a couple of bass tracks, a couple of saw tracks on which I program some chords most of the time. I've got some stuff for mid intros, screeches, mid leads, some other stuff that are mostly pads and plugs and that sort of stuff. Then we have a couple of voice tracks and a couple of effects tracks. Now all of them are routed into the mixer. So I'll just drag it up here so we can expand it a little. Okay, so all the tracks are down to -25 for the gain staging. So not everything is going to clip into the master bus. So these are all the audio tracks, and then we get to some buses, which are the pink ones and the light purple ones that are already set up. It's I've got a couple of effects buses for reverbs, for delays, which are already set up, got some names, so I can instantly see what I'm doing. Then next to that are all the normal buses. So I got a couple of for drums, for effects, for vocals, for leads, all the same things that are in the folder tracks. So now next to them there are some drum out buses, which are red, and it's maybe for the beginner producers a little bit complicated, but I always route all my drums to for instance a drum bus, and then if I need anything like a reverb or something else to go to that to go to those drums, then they're sent out to an effects bus, for instance kick verb right there. And then they all come back to an output bus. Now the reason that I do that is that you have a lot of flexibility on how you're treating your reverb and how you're treating the dry signal and the wet signal. Now we'll not get into that a whole lot, but maybe I'll get back to it on another time. So everything is already set up, and then we can start with the track. So we'll just have a listen to it. Here we go. Just take the master bus and then drag it up a little bit.
Take me to the stars. When there were no stars in the sky that night, take me to the stars.
Okay, so you have a basic idea of how it sounds. So let's start with the intro part, which consists of a cut it off kick, which sounds like this. And as you can hear, there's some reverb on there. And let's see it in the mixer. There it is. It's going to a kick verb. And that's the one that is right there. Let's see, where is it? There it is. Which has a plug and mix digital reverb, which is great for kicks. And also I cut it off all the low end part and a bit of the high end. And the reason that I want to do that is if you don't cut off your low end of your kick, then it will just suck up all the energy in your mix. So if you're doing reverbs on kicks, then either do it into the sample. So if you're making your own kicks, then incorporate the reverb into your kick and then sample it and then place it into your project. But if you want to have a short kick and then have the reverb come after it, then just take some of it out after the reverb. So one of the advantages of doing this on a bus is that you can take a reverb signal and treat it differently than if you would do it as an insert on the track itself. So then next, below that we have a crash, just simple stuff. I always program my drums in MIDI. So one of the advantages of that is that you can always take certain tracks or certain MIDI events and then save them. If I want to save something in Studio One, I can just drag it out back into the browser, and then it says export to either a music loop or a MIDI file. And I can also drag in really simple MIDI files. So if I have something like a snare drum loop, or how do you call it, a roffel in Dutch, so which sounds like this. Now, there's nothing more boring than programming those snare drum things. And if you want to save it, then just drag it out into the browser. And if you click Alt, then you can select MIDI file, and then it will save your MIDI file. So you can use it later on and maybe make a couple of them and then switch it up a little bit in a different track. So you always have a snare ready to go, which saves a lot of time, which you can spend on doing cool creative stuff. So then we have a clap right here. All those things are they are treated, of course, with some stuff. at the crash, I cut off some of the low end, put in a Valhalla room to make it sound a little bit wider, and then I put on an Echoboy Delay to have it delay a little bit longer, so it has a little bit of a tail, which sounds like this. Which you need to be careful at if you're doing like multiple crash hits at the same time, so it won't go phasing after each other because of all the delays clashing into each other. Then we have the clap. Don't know what I did there. Oh yeah, of course. My favorite distortion unit. I can recommend this to everybody. It's a really great distortion unit. I just distorted it a little bit and put the mix at halfway. So the dry signal is coming through as well as the wet signal, half of it. Then I cut it off some of the low end and put my favorite drum compressor on it, which is an 1167 from UAD. And then some vintage verb and of course a little bit of EQ to push some of the highs. So, okay, then at the bottom, the world famous Rocco, which I posted on some stuff on Instagram, and some people were asking, well, what is that? And I used to have a hands-up project with a friend of mine, Jeroen, if you're watching. We had lots of fun, and we were always programming these wobble basses, which were famous in hands up, and there was an artist, Rocco, that always did that, and it sounded like this. This is a fast one, and it's actually a really simple patch, which I made in Serum. So here it is. It's just a saw wave with 3 unison voices, a little bit detuned from each other, with always one in the middle. Really important, guys, when programming bass sounds. Something has to be in the middle because stereo basses just don't go. At these frequencies they do, but everything below 200 hertz, you probably heard, it should be mono. But this one actually just starts at that frequency. So if we're pulling up the FabFilter Pro Q on that channel, you can see that I cut it off everything below 100 hertz. So there's something there. At from 100 to 200 hertz, but it is actually in stereo because I have 3 unison voices. So it's a really simple patch, and there's of course a filter envelope on there to make it sound a little bit plucky, like this. Here you can see it, and then I programmed the automation for it like this, so it can open up later on when the leads hit. Okay, then under there we've got a vocal, which is just a really simple vocal saying "Take me to the stars."
Take me to the stars.
And I think I did some stuff on there. Yeah, I did. The vocal is from Splice actually, so guys, if you don't know Splice, just check it out. It's a really cool site where you can download all sorts of samples. And what I did there was I took the vocal and it sounded like this.
Take me to the stars.
Which had a different sort of pitch. So first I took a FabFilter Pro Q to filter some of the lows off, and then I took a little Alter Boy, which is a really great plugin, which once was free from Soundtoys. So if you missed it, now you have to pay for it. And then if you take this robot setting, then it will just flatten out all the frequencies. So what it does is it takes the whole vocal and it puts it to C as a melody thing, and it just flattens out it. And then you can switch up the pitch to fit the key of your song. So I took it -4, so it will fit my song key. And then afterwards I took a Echoboy Delay, which I really like, and I programmed a custom delay for it, so it had a little bit more swing. And then afterwards, I took a really extreme setting on the Ultra Maximizer just to compress the delay like hell. So it's a little bit more audible. So then it would sound like this. Let's see.
Take me to the stars.
Okay. Now, then it goes to the vocals track, which is, where is it? There it is. Which there's not really that much on there. It gets sent to a vocal reverb. I'll show you that. Let's see, there it is. Kind of have to navigate my way around because I'm always used to working on a 4K screen, and this is a 1080. So it looks a little different and everything is in the wrong place. So here we go. There's a Valhalla room on there, and I normally don't use that on vocals, but in this case I wanted a really huge sounding vocal reverb, so it fitted this one. Normally I really like plates on vocals. So EQ on there doesn't do anything, it's just sitting there. Okay, so, and then before that we have a reversed reverb. For the guys that don't know what it is, a reversed reverb, I'm going to explain a little bit on this later. But it actually is just a portion of the vocal which I reversed, then took some reverb, put it on there, and then recorded the reverb, and then switched it back over. So it has a nice intro to it. So it sounds like this. Okay. And I'll explain it a little bit later where I did a creative reversed reverb. So here we go. Then we've got some screeches going on. This one. And later on we've got this one. Okay. Now these are in audio. So you might think, well, it's a sample. No, it isn't a sample because I took them from this serum patch. There we go. So now you can see it. And it's actually I think it's a preset, which is coming up later on a different sound bank. Not the one that we're presenting later on, but I'm working on a really cool sound bank for Serum. So you'll get it later on. Okay, so next up is the break part. Let's see, where is it? There it is. We're diving into the break right here. So the first thing you hear when we're going into the break is this huge impact kick, which is this one. There we go. Okay, so this is a really cool thing because I know a lot of people that are taking all sorts of kicks, impact things from sample packs, which is a shame because you can make them yourself really easily. So if you want to do that, then you can just take this one. Let's see, I've got a track right here. And it's really easy to do. So first thing first, you take an EQ, cut off everything above, say, 200 Hertz. Or a little bit more, depending on your taste. Then take a reverb. Doesn't matter which one. In this case, I have a true verb. And one thing that's really important is just shut off the early reflections, because they will just fuck up the whole thing if you're into that. So just turn those off or set them at 0. And then take another EQ and then put it afterwards and filter out all the high end. Now, the kick that is on there, I can just let you hear it dry, and it sounds like this. It's just a regular EDM type of kick. You can take any kick for this. Just take a house kick or a Vengeance Essential Club Sounds thing. It depends on your taste. If it's a longer kick and it has a little bit of a tail, then just make sure that it fits the key of your song. But if it has a really short kick and it doesn't have a real tone to it, then doesn't matter which one you take. And then depending on how you set your EQ settings, you can make it sound differently. So this sounds like really, really low. Maybe the guys listening on phones, you can't even hear it. And you can switch it over a little bit higher. Then you get a little bit more atmosphere into it. And if you set the second one higher as well, you get a little bit more of the reverb sound. So there we go. So it's just a matter of taste on how you set it. So really great stuff if you're into making your own effect sounds. So we also have a downsweep right here, which I made myself. Also pretty easy to do. This one's made with Serum, with just a noise chorus effect and a filter. If you want to learn more about that, then just drop something in the comments below. So then I can maybe show you on a later moment. Then the next thing that we've got here is the Take Me to the Stars one, the vocal, which is this, and it has a really nice reversed reverb on there.
When there were no stars in the sky that night.
Okay. So this one is really interesting. And I think I've got another one right there, which is really cool as well. There it is, which is really interesting. Now, if you want to make your own reverse reverbs, it's really easy to do. So I'll just, let's see, show you a really great technique for this. Because if you're working in Studio One, then you have a really cool thing that is called macros. Now, I had a couple of guys in studio here already, and when they saw me do this, and they said, "Whoa, this is really great! I wanted to do this as well." So if you're not on Studio One, then I would highly suggest you switch. If you don't, then you have to do it just the manual way. So the normal way of doing something like a reverse reverb is just taking a portion of the audio. Let's bounce this and make a copy of it, and then most of the time you would use this first portion of a vocal. Let's see, here we go, and it sounds like this.
When there were no.
Okay, so maybe a little bit shorter. Just
when
is enough. Okay, so make a new audio track and then drag it on there. Great. Maybe even just bounce it there, because I think I have some processing on it. Yeah. So we'll just bounce it down to a new audio track. Here we go. So now it's on a new audio track. Now, the thing that I want to do, that I would normally do, is just reverse this. So like this, reverse it, and then put some reverb on there, then bounce it down to audio, and then reverse it back. Now, that's a really tedious thing to do. And I really hate it, doing that all the time, especially when you have a lot of vocals that you want some reversed reverb on there. So there's a really cool thing in Studio One, which is right here. If you installed it, it's called the macro toolbar. And if you go into the settings and you say macro organizer, then you can program your own macro. So everything that is in Studio One that is automatable or programmable to a keyboard shortcut, you can also program it all after each other. So I made a really cool thing here. It's called reversed verb. And if I open this, we get this nice thing. So the first thing that it does is it says reverse audio. Then it says insert event effects. Now for the guys that don't use Studio One, there's a really cool thing in Studio One. It's called event effects, where you can say, okay, I want just an effect on this event. So only this event, not on the whole track, but only on that one. And you can, if you double click it, you can choose which thing that you want to, which effect that you want to get on there. So I have the True Verb installed there, and you can say which preset that it has to choose. So in this case, it chooses the Millennium Verb, which is a really long reverb preset, and I want to have a tail of 10 seconds. So what it does after that is render the event effects with the 10-second tail, and then reverse the audio back. So everything that I need to get a really nice reversed reverb is in this macro patch. Now the cool thing is that I can assign that macro patch to a keyboard shortcut. So really great stuff. So I assigned it to a keyboard shortcut, which is actually, I don't know if you can see it. Let's see if I can. Yeah, I've got this really cool blue X keys programmable keyboard here, and I programmed all my shortcut keys on this keyboard. And there's one here, and I can't zoom in, unfortunately. But if I press this button, then it just triggers the whole macro. So I'll just switch back. So I'm pressing the button. There it goes. It reversed it, and now it's bouncing down the reverb and reversing it back. So we actually now have a really nice and long. I'll just make it a little bit louder, as you can see. So, pretty great stuff. And then always don't forget to cut out the vocal at the end, because that has some dry signal into it. So we now have a really nice long reversed reverb. If you want to do some really cool stuff with it, like I did on the other one, that is later on here in the track, this one. This one actually has a pitch down into it. So I took, let's see, where is it? I took a sound shifter, pitched it an octave up, and then automated this down. So we get this effect. Whoa. So really cool stuff. Just getting creative with reversed reverbs. Let's take this off. Now another really cool thing that you can do with reversed reverbs, which I do a lot of the time, is use a plugin from Studio One as well, and it's called Xtram. So wait, oh, it's the wrong one, you guys. Sorry, plugin focus. Xtram. Okay, so here we go. Yes, let's get back. Okay, so I'm dropping this plugin on there, and this is a Studio One native plugin, but you can also use something like a Tremolator from Sound Toys, or maybe there's some other plugins in your own DAW that work for this. But this one's really cool. If you take off the sync button, what it now will do is freely work as a sort of an LFO. And then I can take this and make it a square wave type. So it's either on or off. Take the depth all the way up, and then make it really fast. And then automate this parameter down. So you get this type of effect. Here we go. So some really nice stuff. I know there's some guys doing this with Effectrix or other glitch type of programs, but it's really not necessary, because you have a lot of control over it this way. And if you're not really sure where it will end, or if it will end at the exact time that you wanted to do this, then you can just bounce it down to audio and then switch the audio event like this. Let's see. If If I bounce this down to audio, then, yep, here we go. Then I can actually really see where it ends. So I can program it right at the start of my vocal. So these ones will match each other.
When there were no stars in the
just depending on what you're wanting to do with this. So another really cool thing that you can do with this, which I also use a lot, is the, let's see, where is it? Enigma from Waves, which is just sort of a phaser type of tool. And it just gives some nice texture to the sound. Here we go. So it gets a little bit of a different color, so it's not that boring type of reversed reverb. So, enough of reversed reverbs. Let's talk about reversed pianos, for example. This one. Here we go. It's a really low piano tone, which I sampled and then reversed and faded in. Which will come to the star piano, which is this one.
Take me to the stars.
Okay, so it's a really easy-going piano. And then we get to the nice part, some strings. Which are from Omnisphere. And then, of course, we are coming to the part where guys might be curious about, which are the lead sounds, of course. We have a couple of lead sounds going on right here, which are this one. This is the main lead. Let's see. Which is actually just a silent patch made from initialized. So it's just a patch that I created myself. Then under there is another one, which is just a really hyped up pulse, just to support it. That's why I call it SQ support. So it's a square type of support sound. And then I also have a saw wave support, which is also a silent. And oh wait, the square one is a serum patch. Yeah, really basic stuff, actually. So, and then under there's a couple of saws. Now, as you can hear, the first one is really, it lacks a bit of high end. And I'm compensating for that with the high saws, which are right there. So they're really supporting each other, because when they're playing together, they sound like this. So. And I actually do this on purpose, because I take these saws and then put some EQ on there. First one, very simple, just a little bit of mid boost, and it's going to my favorite distortion unit again, distorting it, and then taking some of the low end out and taking some of the high end out, because the high end gets a little wrecked because of the distortion. And I'm compensating for that with this other patch, and it's from Nexus, and I filter all of the low end out and a little bit of the high end to make them fit together. So together they sound really nice. And these guys are actually just panned a lot to the side of the mix. Which is not really good for mono compatibility, but it works. I use the Vengeance stereo bundle for this, which there's not really that much fancy things going on, but this is the stereo thing. So I boost a little bit of the side signal, and I cut out the side part in the low end. So we have a clean low end going on. Then at the leads, so maybe some of you have seen that there's another layer on top of this, which is actually sort of a ghost layer that is going to my FabFilter Volcano, which has a filter envelope on there to make all the synths work together and have the same filter. So I'm coming back to this in a later tutorial because it's a whole different story. I mean, I don't have time for this right now, but so it's a trigger track, and it's working on the FabFilter Volcano, just to get this effect at the beginning. Those nice plucky sounds. You don't get that if you have all sorts of different synths with all different filter envelopes going, because they all sound differently, and it won't sound as nice. Just going through all different filter envelopes. So then next up, they're all coming together. At the saw ones, at the saw part, I also do the same thing with the filter envelope. Here it is, another FabFilter Volcano. It's a great plugin for this. And then we are coming to, oh yeah, the sub part, which is also pretty big part of the song, actually. So, guys, if you're listening on something of a laptop, or maybe it's a little bit difficult to hear, but if you're listening on a full speaker system, then it's better to hear. But the sub part is like really the lowest thing in the mix. Here you can see it, put some EQ on there. And it's working great together with our good friend Rocco. So they make a lot of the low, make up a lot of the low mid part of the song, and it's actually pretty important to have that working well. Especially the Rocco is doing a lot in this mix. So then we have some other stuff. Here we go. I have a Arpeggiator. Which are really thin sounding ARP from Silent. There it is. Here we go. I think I actually filtered a lot of it out. Put a FabFilter Simplon on there. And a little bit of Extram to make it pan left and right. And if a hollow room, put a reverb. So next up, we're going to the part in the climax.
To the stars.
Okay, so kicks, of course, main kick. I'm not going into the kick part right now because it's a lot of work to explain the whole kick things. Then we have the wide strings, which are these ones. Which are layered under there in the second block. I always talk about blocks. So it's like 8 bars at the same time. And then it switches into something different. So in the second block of the drop, then you have the wide strings coming in. So they're filling out a lot of the frequency spectrum, just to make it sound a little bit more full and fatter. Okay, so we're actually already in 45 minutes into the live stream. So, okay, guys. Next time I'm going into the whole mid intro part, and I'm going to let you hear it right now. So here we go.
When there were no stars in the sky that night. Take me to the sky.
Which are some nice screeches from Serum mostly. I really love Serum for screeches. A couple of kicks, a couple of other tricks in there, some reversed stuff in there. So we're going into detail on that in a later live show, or maybe I'll do some separate tutorials on those stuff. The other thing I really wanted to talk to you about was the new sound bank that is coming up. So I'm switching to another project right now, which is the MP3 that I got from Michel. He worked really hard on this, guys. So a little word on the soundbank stuff. So what he did was he programmed like 64 patches, I think, for Spire, which are all for the freestyle genre, which is really big in Holland, and I think it's getting some support over in Mexico and some other parts of the world, and Chile as well. So really cool genre, which is like a combination of old school sounds, really party oriented. I always call it like the upper ski of the harder styles. It's well, it's a really cool genre. And, as a producer team, we do a lot of freestyle productions, so it made sense to do a really cool sound bank, and Michel just put his heart into it and made this. So I'm going to show you a little bit of the MP3 that he made as a promo. Later on, we're going to do a video with some patches on there, so you can see how they are programmed and how you can use them in your productions. But first things first, let's just hear it right now. Okay, so guys, I hope you really enjoyed the show. Just leave some good questions, comments, other stuff that you really want to know about our productions in the comments, and we'll get back to it. The whole show is going to be available after we shut down the live part, and I also going to cut up some of the parts and put them on YouTube for you guys, so you can watch them over and over again, and maybe do a little bit more into detail stuff, because we went over it really quick, so maybe you have a lot of questions to ask. Other things, we'll be doing a new live stream, especially for the sound bank later on, to present all the patches. I think it's coming up in a couple of weeks. The whole sound bank will be available on April the 2nd, off the top of my head, but we'll get back to that. You will see some announcement dates on our Facebook page. So please stay tuned for that, and really thanks for watching, guys. If you want to learn some more stuff, then keep us in your preferences. And just mark us on Facebook. If you want some really into detail stuff, some masterclasses or some private lessons, then just hook us up at info@bizzyworks.nl. If you're in need for some really cool co-productions, because we're doing a lot of music productions. We don't do ghost productions, we do co-productions. We're really fond of that because we work with a lot of great artists which have really great ideas, and we work with them together to work some stuff out and make some great tracks. So if you're needing that, then also drop us a line at info@bizzyworks.nl. So guys, thank you for watching, and see you next time.